Alright, camera battery is low, so let's make this quick. RX 6000 series AMD press conference. So, I saw it and the feelings I got were mixed, kind of like the Ryzen 5000 series reveal. I feel good about some things, I feel bad about other things. So I'm just going to talk through the conference and then I'll give you kind of my wrap up at the end. So Lisa comes out first of all and she's hyping up Ryzen and she talks about, you know, the 5700 XT, how much of a breakthrough that card was. And then she says 2020 is the year of the gamer, which I think is interesting considering like your products are coming out in November. 2020 is over. So to say that, I mean, I get it, like with the new consoles and all the new graphics cards and everything, I can understand how you could say that, but I mean, we're coming to a close. It's about to be 2021, so yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, AMD is going to be in the consoles. Everyone knows that now. And then she hypes up Ryzen even more, and is like, okay, alright, so now we finally get to the meat and potatoes, which is the 6000 series. So the main card that was the big talking point of this was the RX 6800 XT. So this other woman comes out and she talks about all this stuff, about how great this GPU is going to be for like productivity in games and stuff. And she mentions this term that we're going to see more. It's called Infinity Cache. And all I got was that it makes more bandwidth with less power, is what I got. It's like 128 meg of cache on the die of the chip. So it's like really fast apparently, I guess. I don't know what practical purposes that's going to have, but we'll see when we get the cards in our hands. She says we're talking about things with DirectX 12 and Microsoft Direct Storage API, which is going to contribute to faster SSD load times. Again, I don't know what any of this means. I don't know what any of the numbers are going to look like, so we're going to have to wait for reviews. Then a guy comes out and finally reveals the lineup. So we start with the 6800 XT. We have 72 compute units, 2015 megahertz clock, 2250 boost, 128 megs of Infinity Cache, 16 gigs of GDDR6 VRAM, and 300 watts is the assumed total onboard power. They showed it a bunch of games, all the modern games like Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Every single one of them at 4K pulled over 60 frames. 88 in Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I know that's a popular game for like benchmarking. So Shadow of the Tomb Raider, we got there 88 frames in Shadow. And then they compared it to the RTX 3080. It was very, very comparable. They kind of traded blows. Some games, the 6800 XT won. Some games, the 3080 won. So it was kind of a toss-up. But what's interesting is that the 6800 XT in total consumed power is at 320. So it's 20 watts more than the 6800 XT. So we potentially have something that's comparable to a 3080 for that has more efficient power usage. And that really piqued my interest because, you know, we're engineers here, we're all about efficiency. So the fact that they're able to make that more efficient, that GPU more efficient, I like that. So points to AMD for that. Then he mentioned the software that helps with the overclocking rage mode. I think it's just like you click of a button and it like fiddles with some settings and it like improves your clock a little bit. They didn't really go into much detail, or I couldn't follow it, one or the other. And then they talked about something that was very, very interesting. Now this, really, it was probably like the peak of the conference for me. It was probably the most interesting thing. They called it AMD Smart Access Memory. So you need a Ryzen processor with, I think it's just an AM4 motherboard? I'm not entirely sure. Or it might be just 5000 series Ryzen. Need to check on that, but we'll see. So basically how it works is that the chipset on the motherboard can connect and directly like access or talk to or communicate with your graphics card's VRAM, the 16 gigs of VRAM on it. So that's interesting, and apparently that's going to increase like performance. They showed like I think it was 13% increases, but I think the hurdle is going to be developers implementing it. I don't know too much about the technical aspect of it, but if these numbers are true and it's a widely added feature, then that can make a Ryzen plus Radeon PC, an all-red PC, that can make that very, very compelling. So that's very, very interesting. And that's something that NVIDIA plus Intel would not have. So it's very interesting to consider. This AMD Fidelity X, again, I couldn't really follow what it was. They just touted some features. And I think it's supposed to run alongside ray tracing. And then they finally give us the release date and the price. November 18th, $649. That's a lot of money. For comparison, a 3080 is $699. So $50 cheaper for something that looks like it's more efficient and comparable in power. So, good. Then, as kind of a lesser tier card, they release the RX 6800 non-XT. 250 watts, so 50 watts less than the XT version. You still got the 128 megs of Infinity Cache. Still got 16 gigs of VRAM. It's a lower clock, 1815 to 2805 boost. 60 compute units, which is 12 less than the 72 on the 6800 XT. But that's also coming November 18th, and it will be for $579. I'm not sure how much the 3070 is, but I don't know if that price is comparable or not. Someone check that. So $579 for the 6800. And then Lisa comes back out and she releases, or shows off, the 6900 XT. This is going to be the 3090 competitor, apparently. 80 compute units, and then I think everything else was pretty much the same. The same clock as the 6800 XT, same 128 megs cache, 16 gigabytes of VRAM, 300 watts. I think the only difference was the 80 compute units. So 8 more compute units. And then, this was probably one of the highlights of the conference, was they showed the chart comparing the 6900 XT to the 3090. And oh boy, I think this card may be a 3090 killer, to be honest. At least in 4K. I don't know about 8K, but who games in 8K? So, I didn't copy down the whole chart, but what it showed was that when the 6900 XT won in games, and this is 4K, mind you, it won by a lot. Like, we're talking an average of like 10 to 15 frames. But when it lost, it only lost by a little bit, like less than 5. So the wins were big and the losses were minimal. And then in a lot of games, they just traded blows with each other. I think Shadow of the Tomb Raider, they were the same thing. So that was very, very interesting. And here was the big kicker. It's going to come out December 8th for $999, compared to the 3090's $1,499. $500 less for something that's comparable. And it also has a 300 watt total onboard power, compared to, I think the 3090 has what, 350? 320? I'm not sure. Wow. That's really good. So, let's wrap up. I kind of want to just wrap this up with kind of my overall impressions. I gave you all the content that was in the conference. Let me tell you my thoughts. So, this is kind of a double-edged sword for me. On the one hand, AMD has shown, if these numbers hold true, adjusting the camera, if these numbers hold true, AMD has shown that they can be competitive in the enthusiast GPU space, which is great. That's been one of the complaints about AMD for a long time, and Lisa actually mentioned it at the conference, is that why can't you be competitive? They were kind of self-aware. And it really looks like they came out swinging with this launch. That's great. So I'm making a mistake that a lot of reviewers can make, and I'm aware of the mistake, and I'll mention it, but I'm making the mistake of being disappointed because it's not what I wanted. You gotta be able, as a reviewer, as someone who's reviewing something, you have to make the distinction between what you want and what you got. For what we got in this conference, I'm actually really excited. I think that it's great for the people who are going to buy these cards. But we also need to address what I want, because I think it's an important point to make. So far, and I don't think this is going to be, I haven't heard about it from either side, Team Green or Team Red. As far as the newest generation of graphics cards, let me check. Okay. So, as far as the newest generation of graphics cards, the cheapest one from both sides is going to be the 3070 from NVIDIA for $500, $499. So, if you want to get in on the newest generation of graphics cards, you have to pony up $500. Or settle for something old, or buy something used. And it just, it kills me that, and I was expecting AMD to do it. Like, obviously NVIDIA, no, but AMD, I was so sure would come out with something for lower-end gamers. There are people, a good chunk of people, I would say most people, who they don't have $500 to $1,000 to $1,500 to throw away on a graphics card. A lot of people want to spend $200 to $350. That's a good range right there on their GPU, and we have nothing there. Like, I mean, in terms of like modern-ish stuff, you got an RX 580, you got the 5700 XT, you got, gosh, I don't think the 2000 series RTXs are on sale yet, so probably a GTX 1000 series from 2016. I mean, these are the kind of cards that you're looking at if you can't pony up these big price tags. And it just makes me angry that we, as mid-range gamers, as lower-end gamers, aren't getting GPUs made that can fit our prices. Now, I'm sure they'll come out with something next year, or maybe the year after that. I don't know. They'll eventually have to come out with something that lower-end, lower-spec gamers can buy. But the fact that we just got kicked by the wayside for this initial release so that they can cater to their enthusiast 0.001% of the market, I just feel is really insulting. And I expected it from NVIDIA. NVIDIA has kind of been the people to cater to enthusiasts for a long time. But I was not expecting it from AMD. I was expecting them, I mean, even in the Ryzen 5000 lineup, they gave us a Ryzen 5. It was more expensive than the last generation, but they gave it like, hey, yeah, this is on paper a mid-range CPU. But with the graphics cards, you only get 3 from NVIDIA and AMD, and it's either upper mid-tier, high tier, and then like uber enthusiast tier for the 3090 and 6900 XT. Like, jeez, it's just crazy that like you can't get into the new GPU game for under $500. It's insane, especially considering how reasonable CPU prices have become. So, but that's just me kind of thinking out loud and venting. That's not to say that this conference was bad. It's me having a negative emotion because it's not what I wanted to see. But for what I got, I think it's really good. And I think that what it shows is that AMD can pose a serious competition to NVIDIA now. So I'm actually kind of going to be curious to watch the benches and see kind of where the AMD and NVIDIA stack up against each other. That will be very interesting to see. In games, productivity, things like that. I think that was pretty much all I wanted to say. But I just really hope that we can see something from the low end come out reasonably quickly. Either next year, maybe early next year to late next year, or maybe that we have to wait till 2022. I don't know. Because when did Nvidia release the 1660 Ti or whatever it was? Like, I think it was 2019. It was well after the RX 2000 series first launched. So, I don't know. We'll have to see. But if you, the final takeaway is that if you are someone who is going to buy one of these cards, you should be very, very happy. And you should also wait until not reviewers but consumers can get their hands on them and start releasing benchmarks to show you what the better deal is going to be. Because a Ryzen Radeon PC looks like it can be really compelling now, which is good to see, and that makes me happy. So, that's going to wrap it up. That was my final takeaways. Let me know what you think down in the comments. If you like the video, subscribe, like, do all that good stuff. And yeah, we'll see you next time.